throttle that and it's reasonable, would it be reasonable to have you manage my one property for $70,000? Probably not. You know, as long as it's reasonable, it's fairly easy. What would you pay a third party to manage my properties? Well, probably 8 to 12%, you know, in that range. It's, you know. So when I can throttle the income and control that by dialing back my management fees or dialing them up a little bit, then it makes sense, and zero out the C corporation. If I'm making a lot of money, sometimes it makes sense to only pay 21% tax corporate rather than a 37% individual tax rate. Okay. If I'm trying to build a business and I'm going to invest in the business, 21% is better than taking it out of it as an S corp, paying individual taxes and then leaving the money in the C or in the S corp. So it depends on what it is you're doing. If I'm building a business and I want to sell it, and I want to sell it to a venture capitalist, almost always they're going to want to see a C corporation with 3 years of audited financials. But if I'm just running my management company, and if I'm building real estate, that's my ultimate goal. I want enough money in the management company to cover tax purposes, but that's it. I don't want to make money up there. I want to make money in real estate. Does that help? There's lots of reasons to do the C Corp, but not all of them apply to what you're doing. Okay. Well, what else are you learning that's helpful? What's that? Oh, the bag. Computer bags. Stop buying purses. Okay. Vinny, how long have you been married? Okay. What day of the month did you get married on? October 12th. Okay. Can I give you a little piece of marital advice here? When you come home on November 12th from work, it will be your 1 month anniversary. Nobody told me about a 1 month anniversary. I had no idea you're supposed to do something. Well, you know, dress up and you got it already and we're supposed to do 1 month anniversary. Be prepared for that, okay? Do something. Last month, October 3rd was our 540th wedding anniversary. 540th. Every 23rd of every month, this is our new anniversary. I'm so happy for you. We figured we might never see a wedding, a whole wedding anniversary, so we decided to do one. And there we go. All right, let's see. Little from Susie. The estate plan is an important everlasting gift you can give to your family. And setting a smooth inheritance isn't as hard as you might think. And here's a little thing we post on social media. If you don't have an estate plan, your state has one for you. Oklahoma has an estate plan already for you. It's called probate. Okay. I told you there are free roads and there are toll roads all the way through the tax system. Also, there's toll roads and there's free roads all the way and everything. Here's the toll road. Is if you don't have a better estate plan. The average in America is about 6 to 10% of all of your assets. Put them all together. That includes all the equity and properties. All of your retirement accounts that don't have a beneficiary anything at all, equity in your fund, everything you have, you put it in a big pile. Take off 6 to 10% to figure out who's going to get what out of your estate. Can I suggest that some of you know it sucked? Okay. After it takes 9 months to go through probate, and you go, well, that's not too bad. I can wait 9 months. You know. You have to understand, most people in America die of probate. So if the average is 9 months, and you have accumulated a couple million dollars worth of assets, don't you think that would skew the numbers? And your estate might take a little longer than 9 months. If the average is 9 months, some states take decades to probate. Oh, that hurts. It's easy to contest a will. It's easy to contest probate. When we talk about wills in a minute, if you have assets that are assigned to the will, they will go to probate. A will is reference to the probate court of what to do with their estate. You're going to go through probate if you have assets assigned to that will. Well, guess what? Somebody turned on all the lights. And that's going to wash it down the screen. See if we can get that somewhere. Or somebody get knocked out, I don't know, whatever. When something goes through probate, it becomes a matter of public record. And depending on your state,
there we go.
We've only seen the screen. Not see it, that's good.
Oh, okay.
Whatever, we're okay, we only have 2 left, that's good. If you receive something out of probate, or you're going to receive something, and it's a matter of public record, if you think you're getting a lot of them, junk mail from creditors or charities right now, you should wait till your name is on the public record as having received something, and that is going to quadruple. People are going to be there, and you're going to find relatives you didn't know you had if you start receiving something through probate. And then assets distributed become a matter of public record. And if you have assets in multiple states, yes, you're going to go through as if you own real estate in Texas, you're going to go through Texas probate. And in Oklahoma, and wherever you own property, you're going to go through, well, you're not, you're dead, but your kids are going to go through probate in multiple states. Every state you own assets. Now, let's talk about estate taxes. Right now, there's a federal exemption limit. So unless your estate is around 13 point, I don't know what percent right now, $13 million, there's no estate taxes. Oh, that's good. Right? Because most of us don't qualify for that. And then if you're married, we could double that exclusion up to 26 million. There's no estate taxes. Federally. But a lot of states have an additional estate tax. No, Oklahoma does not. Some states have an inheritance tax. So if you receive something, you have to pay an inheritance. So, and I don't know if I put that slide in or not. I might have. There it is. How about that? I did early this morning. Here are the states that have an estate tax. So Oregon, any state over $1 million, there's an estate tax. It's called a pickup tax, meaning if the federal government's not in charge of it, we will. Now, this $13 million exemption is set to expire the end of 25. And if Trump gets in office, he's going to try to, move that forward. If Kamala gets in office, she's going to let it try to expire. So what's going to happen to the estate tax in the future? I don't know. The blue states, like Nebraska, if one of your your kids move to Nebraska and you give them an inheritance, there's going to be an inheritance tax. Oh, they didn't tell you about that, did they? Okay, so there's a difference between the estate tax where the person deceased pays the taxes. And there's between an inheritance tax, meaning the receiver pays the tax. But there's that, and so can we avoid those? Yes. We can avoid all of those things. Let me introduce you to my wife's family's estate. This is Mohawk Mountain Resort up in the Catskill Mountains up in New Falls and Poughkeepsie, New York. It's one of the great grand hotels of America. It's a nice little property. You've got 80 miles of walking trails all the way through their land. High Point right there, you can't see behind it, you can see a little bit of the Hudson River. And behind that knoll is the Vanderbilt Mansion, the Roosevelt Mansion. This is a big money. It's a nice property. What can I say? You've got botanical gardens that are just incredible. They were also, there a lot of things, a lot of golf. It is an all-inclusive resort. When you go there, it's amazing food. When we stay there, my wife and I, because she's extended family, she gets a discount. And if we go there in the off-season, with the discount, I think last time we only paid $762 a night. It's a nice property. So we stayed there one night so she could say she did it, and we stayed down in New Falls. So I was over there to holiday. They were also, we voted the #1 spot in the world in 2000 and 2002. This was their family. This was the greatest. They were also the founding fathers of Redlands, California. Right next to Loma Linda and San Bernardino. They own all the upper land that looks over the San Bernardino Valley. You see Lake Arrowhead, up in the mountains and Big Bear and all of that. They own a portion of this. It was thousands of acres. They brought citrus into Southern California. They owned the largest botanical garden west of the Mississippi. They owned hay fields and orange groves, and it was a massive operation. Estate planning was done on the New York side, but not on the California side. They didn't get around to that. There were 5 heirs to the California estate. Each one of them, or a mom, did not. They followed this for 19 years. And in the end, my wife's dad, one of the 5 heirs, received a check for a little over $5,000, and the estate was gone. They owned all the upper land, Smiley Heights, Smiley Library, Smiley Elementary. They owned so many. In today's world, it would be $1 billion estate, multi-billion-dollar estate. It was a massive thing, and the estate was gone. It wasn't $5,000; $50,000 is what they all received. The rest was gone on probate and the state taxes and probate fees and trustee fees and attorney fees. I hate probate because my wife grew up in abject poverty, living in food stamps, parents divorced. I hate probate. And I hate fights. And I hate creating a legacy of mess. And this is the mess. My dad, this is our home country store when I was growing up. I grew up in the mountains of Utah. I don't know if you can see behind that little country store, there's a little pile of dirt. We call it a mountain in Utah. Yeah, I know you're a little nature like that, but it's a little bit, it was a great place to grow up. Because we knew everybody. We knew way too much about everybody in town. That was the little place where you you know, you get an ice cream cone or a fish license or fill up your gas car, you're gonna get, I don't know. When you came, this was the local spot. We knew everybody. We had a great big candy counter. It was probably, I don't know, probably 20 feet long, with the old glass bottles up on top and bit of onions and pixie sticks and cinnamon bears and you name it. And Dad hated waiting on the candy counter. So starting at 10 years old, we work on the candy counter. Because people would come up and spend 10 minutes figuring out what to do with their nickel. I want 2 pixie sticks and no, I just want one ticket and I can take it. So we grew up around people. And Dad was never wealthy. But he was honest and he took care of people. There's somebody left to change Jason down, even driving to Wyoming, and Jason came down on the freeway. That was the shame. But he died. When he died, before he died, he sat in trust. There were five of us kids. Well, 6, but, and we all had a copy of the trust. We all knew what was going to happen. There's no surprises. Now, siblings and I get together for Christmas and weddings, and we get together for the birth of the baby, and we get together because we like each other, not because we're fighting over it. It's just stupid. And to create the legacy, Dad, well, he had 5 years of Alzheimer's. And my mom took care of him all of these years, but the last 3 weeks, Mom couldn't take him. He was, sorry, my dad was 6'2". Mom was 4'0". And she couldn't make him go to the bathroom anymore, so he needed more care. And so he went into a home. You don't know when you do this how long he's going to be there. He was probably there 3 weeks. But when you sit down with a person, you know, they want to know all of your assets. They want to know if you can apply for Medicaid. So they list all the assets. You have a house. Well, it's in the trust. Okay, that's it. Can we, yeah, well, yeah, that's in the trust. Yeah, any vehicles, well, yeah, but they're in the trust. So what's not in the trust? Well, everything that, well, $5,000 bank account. Okay, so that, they took half of, and then Medicaid kicked in. Otherwise, it would have devastated, it would have taken half of Mom's estate, half the equity in the house, half of everything that Mom and Dad worked for. So the trust saved them from Medicaid. We talk about lawsuits a lot, but Medicaid can be one of the meanest. And I understand the purpose of Medicaid. It was designed for people that have no money. I get that. But a trust can be more than just a legacy plan. A trust can also be a bit of an asset protection plan if it's used right. My point is, you can either create a legacy or a mess. You can either have your family get together or they can hate each other for the rest of their life because, you know, you got a grandpa shotgun or something stupid. Okay, there's my point. Here's my problem with probate. Number one is the time. I told you the averages. You guys are not average. I told you the expense. It is devastating in the state. I told you it's a matter of public record. Everything that goes through probate becomes a matter of public record. It can't be stopped once it's started. And if you property in multiple states, you're going to go through probate multiple times. And yeah, there's your camera. Okay, sorry. All right. I have found this to be so true. Sitting on the hotline and helping people. I mean, okay, on Tuesday, somebody called and said, my dad died 18 months ago. And my sister and I don't get along, and so the court appointed a conservator to handle everything. Even though there's a trust, we don't get along. I don't want to ever see my sister again. And the trustee, the conservator, won't distribute money. It's all in cash. It's just sitting in cash. There's a couple $1 million in there, and there's only two of us. And she wants to keep taking conservator because she wants to drag this out. There's no reason. There's no real estate. There's nothing to leave with. There's no stocks. I just want my money. What do I do? I don't know what you do. You wait for the conservator, and the conservator wrote back. He said, why can't you distribute? And she writes back and she said, because I said so. How does that make you feel? And the court won't do anything about it. I hate this. I hate not being in control. Okay. All right, that was a little social media post we posted too. Okay. So let's talk some solutions. How do we avoid probate? Now, one way to avoid probate is nobody's ever gone through probate except maybe also still alive. And two is you legal entities that don't die. Excuse me, you had an asset in a corporation. Did you die? Did the corporation die? No, it's perpetual. Your LLC didn't die, your trust didn't die. And so we use entities that don't die. That holds the assets. If all the assets are in your name and you die, then it's going to go to limbo and somebody has to figure out what to do with it, right? That's what we what is trust? It's a fiduciary arrangement and all. Okay, there's okay. Forget that. How many of you have, ladies, how many of you have a big popcorn Tupperware? Everybody does that. Okay. Okay. What color is yours? You have a lot of them. Okay. What is your biggest one? What color? Blue. Okay. And where do you keep it? In the kitchen drawer. Okay. Okay. And you ever put it in the kitchen drawer empty, or you put a little Tupperware that's all the time and put the lid on stuff away? This is your trust. It's your real popcorn Tupperware. Sorry, I got the color wrong. This is your revocable living trust. And someday, yes, you have rights of a corporation, but someday we want all those rights to be assigned to the trust. Yes, you have a home, but someday we want that to be assigned to the trust. Everything that goes into this big Tupperware, you're going to have babysitting instructions for when I leave home. That's your revocable living trust. Got that? Okay, so now let's speak on one other thing. Your kids don't want your stuff. They want money, they don't want your stuff. Okay, so how do we create? And by the way, this is not a whole social media post. You're not creating an estate plan, and I believe this with all my heart. You are creating a legacy. And what you do in this trust can inspire generations. So let's talk about how to do this. A trust should create a legacy because it clarifies rewards and family values. What do you believe in? I don't know. My wife and I believe in traditional marriage. Okay, so we put a lot of money for our kids and grandkids in case they get married. Okay, we believe in traditional. We believe in education, so there's money in there for the kids to go to college. They have 3.5 grade, GPA, and if they get it done in 4 years, and if they, whatever, you're setting your values, and you're saying, but you have to come up with 50% of the money, or you have to do something, where it's not just a gift. We believe in military service. it doesn't pay very well first, and so we'll supplement you. I love America. I want to support you. We believe in medicine, or we believe in missionary service, or we believe in, I don't know, whatever, and you're reporting, you're identifying your values that we have, and here's the legacy we want to pass on. But if you're going to be a druggie and you want to sit on your butt, I'm sorry, good luck. We didn't teach you that way. It identifies family values. It recognizes children's talents and personalities. That was really hard when our kids were little, because we didn't know what direction they wanted to go. But now one of them is clearly in theater, wants to be there in San Francisco, wants to go hard. One of them is a geologist, and she works for a huge company as their she's their efficiency manager, reports to the president, and has thousands of employees underneath her. She's very good, but she's a W2 employee, does not have a woman in her body that wants to branch out. The two boys, they're entrepreneurs. Okay. And so we find things, assets that are going to benefit them and not hurt them. Hope that sort of makes sense. We acknowledge past events. Sometimes, if you already paid for a house for the son, but not for the daughter, maybe we recognize that in the trust. If we clarify distribution of assets, we anticipate paying future events like what happens if your son moves to Texas. Well, that's a community property state. Does wife immediately inherit half of what you were intended to give? Okay. They've been married twice. Third one's not looking good. We anticipate future events. We put in spend provisions and say, you know what? If one of my kids has an IRS lien or is in the middle of a lawsuit, I'm sorry, the trustee can't distribute to you right now until that goes away. That's a spend provision. Or you can only, or spend provision would be like, okay, they're only 18. They only get $5,000 when they get 18 because they haven't followed right yet. And then after that, they work on the income until they, you know, whatever. Those are spend provisions. Second marriages pose an interesting problem for estate planners. Because if you're, okay, wife, second marriage, local husband and wife, the biggest concern is what happens if I die and kids get disinherited. As husband and wife, we just, you know, we're sharing everything. But if I pass away, are my kids to be taken care of? We can add provisions into a trust that we can't put anywhere else. Does that make sense? If you just die and the kids get, oh, well, the kids didn't get it. Oh, I'm sorry, my spouse got it all. That's a problem, right? Or what about generation skipping losses? Because you don't want kids, but I really like my 5 grandkids. Or what about special needs? I've got a special needs kid, and I want to be told that they don't receive the inheritance all of a sudden, that this allows their social security benefits. So this set of assets is there for them, but the trustee has to throttle that and keep it up to the limits. That would be special needs provisions, or charitable strategies, or whatever. Disinherited provisions. I know you never want to think that, but what happens if they really do become a couch potato or a drug addict? Are we going to distribute to them? Estate taxes, and so all of those types of things, limitations on successor trustees. I love that in a trust. That keeps the trustee from carrying this on and taking trustee fees for years and years and years and years. We say, here's the limit on time maybe a year, distribute the assets in the trust. Oh, wait a minute, we have real estate. It might be in a down market, maybe we keep it for 5 years, or maybe limit the amount of money the trustee can take. See, those are common provisions, but that's why we do the trust. Because if we don't have the trust and we just assign things to the will or don't have an estate plan, then the trustees, the executors, the conservators can rob the estate. We don't want that to happen. Okay. None of that. Okay, types of trust. Oh, you're gonna love this slide. Here's what I'm gonna tell you what you need to know right there in that little box. Everything else is marketing crap. Trusts are either revocable or non-revocable. Irrevocable, irrevocable, I don't care how you say it. You can either change it or you can't. Okay. Once you put assets into an irrevocable trust, you pour wet concrete and you ain't getting it back. That's the irrevocable trust, and you're assigning to a third party. Here are you're assigning control. And if you start exercising way too much control over this trustee, and then it becomes your piggy bank, and you just call it out anytime you need money, all of a sudden your asset protection goes out the door because it's an alter ego of you. So irrevocable trusts have some asset protection guidelines and some benefits, but there are some problems too. Okay, so revocable or irrevocable, and they're either created while you're alive or after you're dead. A testamentary trust is created after you passed away. That means the assets are going to go through probate, and then when you create stipulations for the trust to be created in their benefit. So if I were newly married and had little kids, I might create a testamentary trust. So I'm going to give to somebody power to create a trust in my benefit. I mean, I don't plan to die, but if I did, here's the stipulation I want to create in the trust. I don't want to pay for the trust right now, but here's what I want. That would be a testamentary trust. After I'm dead, create this trust for the kids to throttle the income. Does that make sense? So sometimes we use testamentary trust, but most of the time, we're dealing with a living trust. Okay. Now, there's lots of other things. There's a estate planning trust. And the names is just marketing crap. Spendthrift. You've heard of a spendthrift trust. It's a revocable living trust that has a couple of paragraphs saying here's where to throw in distributions. Everything else is a revocable living trust with a spendthrift clause. Or there's a baby marital trust. That's for a married couple. Okay, so it's a revocable living trust that has a couple pages that says, okay, these assets go here, and these assets go here, and maybe we create maybe a Q-tip or a Q-tip trust for second marriages. These assets go creating a trust. These assets go to the A trust, these assets go to the B trust, assets that accumulate during our marriage goes to the C trust. There's what's called a Q-dot trust, in case you marry somebody that is not a U.S. citizen. Okay, it's a revocable living trust that has a little paragraph that says, in case you're not a U.S. citizen, you're going good. But it's just marketing travel. And then there's asset protection trusts. Whoa, does that sound ominous? It's a Delaware statutory trust. It is an offshore trust. It's a dynasty trust. It's marketing, okay? They're created for you an irrevocable trust. In that, okay, that's unlimited legacy. They come up with marketing stuff. Then there's tax redemption trusts. There's a charitable remainder trust. There's a charitable remainder trust. And then they get on into all these little acronyms and confuse people. Well, this is a crud, this is a crap, this is This is an island, it's an irrevocable life insurance trust. Yeah, you understand why asset going away trust becomes confusing? But, and then there's an asset-based trusts that hold an asset like a land trust, or a Rocky Dinar trust, or a firearms trust, or a pet trust, or a, okay, and then there's all the estate planning, the retirement funds. These would be your IRAs and your 401ks and your and your POs and your SEPs and your symbols and your health savings account and here's what you know. It's revocable or irrevocable. It's created by living. Other than that, it's all marketing crap. How's that? Okay? We can simplify it just a whole bunch. Okay, there we go. Okay. But trust is confusing because when we talk about a trust, it really involves a lot of documents. So if the attorney creates a trust for you, what it is here's the babysitting instructions, and here's a contingency for all what kids do in bed, and what you anticipate a good trust is a contingency plan. What happens if this happens? What happens if this happens? What if kids don't just, then that's the trust document. And it's likely it's going to be 50, 80 pages long because it's anticipating everything that could happen. And then there's going to be there's going to be generally an attachment to the trust. We can call it an exhibit A or a schedule A or a, I don't know, whatever. We call it a schedule A. Here's the inventory list of what the trust owns. It owns your house, it owns all of your interest in ABC Corporation, it owns all your rights and interests in the LLC, it owns, I don't know, the bank account here, whatever. So this becomes the inventory list, and it's very likely that Schedule A will have to be amended annually. Whenever you have a business or you add a significant asset, it's likely the trust stays alone. But the Schedule A, you get down, you have the assets. You sold this property, you get that signed and notarized, and it becomes part of the transfer. But it's not really the trust, it's just an amendment to the trust. There's also a personal property amendment saying, notwithstanding all the other distributions, we want the rose-colored China to go to Susie. And we want, the tools to grow to go to Ben or whoever. So I'm taking specific assets. Then there's procedures to death. Here's what I want some of my funeral. I want to be cremated. I don't. Here, I don't know, whatever. Here's what I want. If you fill that out or not, or let them yes, I'm here. Because you're not here anymore, so maybe it doesn't matter. There's a little thing called a certificate of trust. I love this. And a lot of attorneys leave that out. When you go and you want to transfer or convey your property, your home into the trust, you go down to the county recorder, and they say, well, I want to see the copy of the trust. And then you go, so then you go to business, what's in my trust, because that's a private document. However, let me give you the CliffsNote version. So 1 or 2 pages, here's all you need to know. Here's the name of the trust, here's the CliffsNote version, here's the trustee and the successor trustees and the powers that they have. That's it. That's all you're going to do. You go to the bank, you want to put your bank account into the trust. And they say, well, we want to see a copy of the trust. And you're going to say, not on my life. Not on your life, no. But I want you a certificate of trust. Here's all you need to know. I love this little certificate of trust. It's a powerful tool because the trust is a private document. Does anybody know how many billions of dollars Bob Hope had in real estate when he died? Did he have trust? What did Elvis Presley have if he died? Oh, that's a matter of public record. 10,400,000, to the penny, we know what he had, because that was a matter of public record, okay? Then there's funding documents. These are sometimes with claim deeds or transferring property, and you would transfer your home into the trust. You go down to the county recorder, you fill out a quick, not quick. So it's not quick, you're quitting, you're abandoning, you're forsaking all of your claims to this property, and you're assigning it to the trust. So you're quitting. It could be a letter to the bank, and sometimes the bank will want that will document on their sheet of paper that's this big, that fits in this filing cabinet, it's all pink, maybe you ought to use their form, or write a letter and say, I want. And how do you know, how do you know that your property has been transferred successfully to the trust? Because the property tax notice will come in your name anymore. Mine doesn't come in my name. Property tax notice says Don and Tam Pendleton, comma, trustees of the Pendleton Family Trust. My bank account, the bank statement doesn't come in our name. It says Don and Tam Pendleton, comma, trustee of the Pendleton Family Trust. Now, the checks still say Don and Tam, but the real ownership is the trust. And that's how you know it's been successfully transferred to the trust. Now, let me give you a little statistic from the American Bar Association. According to them, 92% of trusts that have been created by attorneys were never funded. Which means you created the trust, you paid an attorney to set up the trust, but they didn't put anything in. Why would they do that? Let's say you're an attorney and you're ready to sell your practice. You've been in business for 40 years and you want to sell your practice. And so we're going to add all the assets that you have. You know, books and computers and all the office space, whatever you have. And then, you know, the loose items, and then they're going to go to your filing cabinet. Here's the last will and testaments you created for people. They are going to go through probate, because that's what a will does. It goes through probate. The short, they're going to go through probate, but it'll be easier probate as a last will and testament. And they go, okay, this estate was worth 2 million, that estate was worth 4 million. They know 70%. If you created, if that attorney created a trust and kept the original document, it's going to have to come back to you. And they know the percentage of people that are going to come back to them and want them to walk them through probate. This filing cabinet is their accounts receivable drawer. How's that make you feel? And then there you go to their other filing cabinet. Here are all the trusts we created that we didn't fund. Those people, they know the percentage of people that are going to come back. And that's their second accounts receivable drawer. Now, does that take you off? That's the way the game's played. And if there were ever to be a massive lawsuit against estate planning attorneys in the nation, it should be on attorneys that created the trust and didn't fund it for you. Because it was no good probate. The trust can only control that which it owns. If you didn't put it in, it's going to go through probate. Now, the formal provision will probably kick it up and it'll be an easier probate. I get that. But it's still going to go through probate. Okay. In business law. You're alive, but you're a vegetative state. All of a sudden, your power of attorney, somebody's power of attorney kicks in. There's a financial power of attorney. record to prove that you're incapacitated, therefore their power kicks in. If it doesn't have HIPAA provisions, it's never gonna kick in and they can't act. Is that cool? Yeah, okay. Those are powers of attorney. Durable means even if I'm incapacitated, it's still effective. Then there's a last will and testament. Let's say I've got my trust all set up and it's all funded. All my assets are in there. Do I still need a last will and testament? Yes, because the last will and testament controls that which you can't put into the trust. Can you put your children, retitle them in the name of the trust? Probably not. Yeah, maybe, but it makes them unpopular in, kindergarten. So probably not. Okay, so that's where we provide guardianship for minor children. And again, I'm gonna get up on my soapbox because if you have minor children or grandchildren, that is your most important document right there. Because those kids are your most important asset, and who raises those kids is your most important decision. Would you agree? Okay, so we had a little fun last night, okay? Think of all your family members who you would rather not raise your kids. Let's not have a discussion about that right now. It's probably wise. Okay, but you all know, okay? What's that? Okay. If you've acquired some money in real estate, there will be a fight over who just raised the kids. And if you didn't put it down on a piece of paper, get it signed and notarized, there'll be a fight. And it will not be about your little darlings, it will be about controlling the assets, I promise. So that to me is a critical piece. And then the care of pets, I can't put kids in. Then there's what's called a pour-over provision. It looks over, it scans over, pours over your entire estate, and it says, this piece of property you bought right before you died, okay, that's in the trust too. It's gonna be a quick probate, but it's gonna go. The tools in the garage, you forgot to put those in the trust, okay. And it's like a big safety net, because anything you didn't fund, that puts it into the trust. That's called the pour-over provision. And then you put procedures of death, and you can put passwords and account numbers and everything that's really not part of the trust. That's in your last will and testament. And then there's an advanced health care directive. Some states call that a living will and a medical power of attorney. Some of them just group it all together into an advanced care directive. Those are state-specific forms. If you move out of state, don't use the one you set up years ago in Virginia, because Oklahoma will have its own. So those are specific. Any questions about, and that is what we lovingly call a trust. How's that? Whoa. And so sometimes when you hear the word trust, you think, oh, why would I pay $3,000, $5,000 to have an attorney set up the trust? Because that's what it is. It's your legacy plan. It's the contingency of everything we have and what I'm going to do with it. And to me, if you build an estate but don't have an end goal, you're missing something. Okay, how's that? Any questions about that? Okay. Now, let's go back to the Tupperware bowl. Oh, do you have a question? Okay, please. Well, okay, if I died, does my wife want to know all my passwords? Well, that would be good. And so I usually put that in the last will and testament. Say, okay, so that whoever you're giving a power of attorney to, or becomes the trustee, or the executor, or whoever has power, can actually get into the darn accounts and see what's there. Okay, they have power of attorney, but they don't have a password. That didn't do them any good, did it? Okay. Or you created an extra step, okay. Now, let's go back to the Tupperware bowl. Most of you know at this point, your home ought to be titled in the name of the trust. It avoids probate. When I die, it's already protected by state law. If you apply for Oklahoma homestead, most of you will, it'll have been in your closing documents, or it's, your homes are pretty well protected. I told you that there's 11 exemptions to the Oklahoma, or 12 exemptions here, but just don't tick off the federal government and take care of your family and, okay. So we assign that to the trust with a quitclaim deed. We take the bank accounts, the brokerage accounts, we assign those down to the trust. I could take my rental properties, I would probably put them not in the name of the trust, I'd put it in an LLC first, but you get the idea. It comes down into your big Tupperware bowls. I usually don't assign vehicles to the trust. Vehicles could, whoever is your executor or trustee could usually go down with a death certificate and get that assigned and it avoids probate. It's usually not a big deal to transfer a car. And so if you were to title it in the name of the trust, your DMV would consider it a sale and want to tax it, which it's not a sale. I'm just conveying it, but they don't get that. And then it also brings liability to the rest of the trust. So I'm putting a line there. So yeah, the trustee is going to want to control it, but we don't really reassign it. Does that make sense? We don't title it in the name. Now, here's what a lot of you, we kind of get that point right to there. Okay, the trust should own those things. We sort of get that. But IRAs could also go into the trust. I told you that an IRA is a trust already. Okay, but I also told you that my wife, my IRA, I'm the beneficiary, set up for my benefit. My wife is the contingent beneficiary or backup, and the trust goes in here. The trust comes in as the second contingent. I could do that, or it could go directly to a kid, or equally among the kids. I could do that. I could also take life insurance, and I like going into the trust when my kids are young. I don't want everything distributed equally, or I don't want them to get it the second they turn 18. I want stipulations in there. I want values. I want. So if my kids are little, I usually like the idea of making the trust the contingent beneficiary. And the same thing with life insurance. Now, life insurance, I'm not the primary beneficiary of my life insurance policy because I'm not here. I'm dead. So my wife is the primary beneficiary, and the trust becomes the contingent beneficiary, especially if the kids are little, because I don't want to dump life insurance money on an 18-year-old kid that hasn't developed a brain, right? Okay, so we don't do that. We can make the trust the contingent beneficiary, and then we say, yeah, but if there's a second marriage, and if this, and okay, that's when we do that. We can't do that any other way. Oops, wrong way. There we go, this button. Okay, now most of you kind of get that. Is everybody up with me here? Here's where most business owners fail. Is we also take all your rights and interests in your operating companies and your LLCs that own property, and we also make them not necessarily the member, but like a contingent when I die, and those things are done in your operating agreement of the LLC. It says I'm the member all the days of my life, and then there's an assignment of benefit or assignment of interest. When I die, I want all my rights and interests in this LLC to go to, could be to a child, it could be to an individual, it could be to the trust, where there's rules and regulations. Does that make sense? There is your popcorn bowl. There's your Tupperware bowl. Everything goes down into the trust. We're actually controlled from the grave. Is that eerie? I'm sorry. Where I've established family values. How's that? That's better. That sounds better. Okay. Any questions on funding the trust? Wow. Oh. Okay. You had a question. pour-over provision gives, okay, trusts have trustees, wills have executors. What it does is it gives the executor power to move things into the trust, but they're gonna go through, the probate process has to happen first. And then the executor can act to move the assets in. So pour-over provision is for little stuff. We don't want a lot of big stuff to go through. There's a large argument in the legal community to have at least one asset go through probate. Take a vehicle, or take one piece of property, or take something small. Think about the probate process. It's old English law. Hear ye, hear ye. Okay, Patrick has died. Anybody who has a claim against his estate, bring it forth or forever, sorry. And so you've got a period of time, 6 months or a year or something, that's the process of probate. All claims come against the estate, and then we divide everything up. That's probate. Look, what if one asset went through probate? Hear ye, any claims against the estate, and then the gavel comes down and said, no, this estate's closed. No more claims can ever come against the estate. Patrick's dead. And he wasn't a very good partner anyway. Remember, he got in trouble? Okay, so, there is a purpose for probate, but we just don't want a lot of assets to go through probate. Maybe one asset, small bank account or something. But we don't want a lot of assets to go through probate. But I do understand that the finality of having a probate. Okay. Did that answer your question on, who had the question on? Okay. Okay. But I have a will, I know. Will is directions to the probate court is what to do. It guarantees probate. It becomes a matter of public record. It's a flag to the unscrupulous. It's 25% of all wills will be contested. I still need a will for guardianship provisions and the pour-over provision. So I like having a last will and testament. It is part of your estate plan. We just don't want big assets assigned there. Okay. And I put this little social media post up. Isn't it ironic we spend so much money feeding our family and sending our kids good nutritious foods and sending them to the best universities, and then we spend, a couple bucks on an estate plan. We need to do better. How's that? All right. 3-day summit is coming up. The next one, I didn't really tell you about this. The next one coming up is in a week and a half. I know, it's a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday class, all of them are. There's a reason for that. We know that it is hard for you to take off time, especially for physicians, people with business owners. We understand that. But it's also impossible for me to get this kind of quality speaker on a weekend. They don't like to work. And so we're bringing in the former senior trial attorney from the IRS. We're bringing the best attorneys anywhere in the nation. And remember, the theme of the class is a lifetime to accumulate, 3 days. Give us 3 days. And so now you filled out these forms, but now what I need you to do is go back to that form and select the date. This used to be a $3,000 class when we were teaching it live. It's not a $3,000 class anymore. We're providing it to you for free. Yeah, like FREE, yeah, like sort of like that, like no charge. Now, some of you are gonna say, well, it's gotta be a great, big sell. Those of you who've been here, we're bringing the best attorneys. They're gonna offer their services for a discount. Nobody's gonna twist your arm. We make sure of that. But according to the American Bar Association, less than 1% of the nation's attorneys specialize in asset protection. It's 0.6% of the nation's attorneys specialize in what we specialize in. And nobody teaches this better than Protect Wealth Academy. We're very good. You've learned something here today you've never heard. Now, picture I am the least among all of the speakers. That is true. I am honored to be in their presence, but I am the least among the attorneys that are there. They are really good. Clint Coons, Toby Mathis have 300 or 400 of their own properties. They've sold businesses worth $50 million. They understand the game. We're bringing the best of the best to you. Sign up for one of those classes. I don't care which one. If we can get you into the November class, there's a lot that we can do to get you all set up for January 1st and start a new year. If we can't, we can backtrack a little bit, but if we get you to the November class, there might be tax deductions that we can still claim for 2024. If we get you next year, then we can, and I don't care, whatever work out your schedule, but would love you have you come. And give us that little form by the end of the day, and we're good. Okay. Questions on estate planning? Yes, sir.
Like you have multiple LLCs and stuff like that, would there be a reason to have multiple trusts?
Generally, there's not a reason to have multiple trusts. Sometimes if second marriage, wife wants to keep her assets separate, husband wants to keep his assets separate. But generally, it's one estate plan. Yeah, because it really doesn't own anything right now. We're assigning, we assign the house there, but we assign the LLCs after you pass away. We're assigning the life insurance after you pass away. The IRA comes in after you pass away. It's not an asset protection tool. In fact, there is no asset protection with the revocable living trust. Your asset protection comes from your Oklahoma homestead and from your LLCs. Your tax benefits come from the corporation. There's really no tax benefits. So no, the need for multiple. How often do you recommend updating the trust? When major things happen. The trust that I created when the kids were little, the kids are big now. We're empty nesters. That was a good time to change it. Change the Schedule A whenever major assets change. But the trust, when the distribution clauses are no longer applicable, or when you decide that, you know what, we need to add some contingencies into this and some what ifs, and then you would amend the trust. You can do it with an attorney. Sometimes an amendment to the trust could be done with a piece of paper and write an amendment. And as long as it's so clear, nobody with a brain could possibly misunderstand it. Get it signed and notarized, and there becomes an amendment to the trust. And so I probably wouldn't recommend a napkin, but an amendment to the trust. And then every few years, I think it's a good idea to look at it and see whether what you created is still applicable. Because you know what, life happens. People die and people get married and they get divorced and life happens. And so how often, I don't know. What major events change? Best I can tell you. Okay? Any other questions about estate planning? Well, okay, so he's asking, what if your lawyer, the lawyer passes away? I don't care. I keep the copy of the trust. Well, you find a good estate planning attorney. And taxes, some of you ask about, can I get a local attorney or a local CPA? The taxes are different than estate planning. Taxes, 99% of your tax game is going to be done on the federal 1040. Everything that goes into that, your business schedules, I don't care. You find a really good tax planner, I don't care if they live in Seattle or Tacoma or if they live in Kalamazoo, I don't care. You find somebody that understands real estate, finds out what it is you're doing, and specializes in that and helps you get your taxes right. Estate planning can be state specific. Now, there are attorneys that will do draft trusts in all 50 states. that's okay. But generally, you want a really good, for estate planning, you want a good local attorney that understands estate planning. As long as they get asset protection, if they don't understand asset protection, they're never gonna tie in your LLCs and your business interests. And you make sure that they funded the darn thing. Now that right alone should have paid for your lunch today, right? Knowing how to fund your trust. Woo-hoo. New baby, okay. Yep,
Does your team work with attorneys here or on your team for Oklahoma?
we're gonna bring the best attorneys in the nation that work nationwide, that have local attorneys that are licensed in Oklahoma, and they might be in Nevada, but they're licensed in Oklahoma. So we are bringing the best attorneys that we can, but we are covering 50 states. Asset protection, we're the best at. We're good at this. Taxes, we're really good at that. Estate planning, they might have to work with a local attorney.
Could you explain about how much we might, you said like 5,000 was a reference number. That we might.
Okay, a good estate plan, the whole thing, probably ought to be in the $3,000 to $6,000 range. If you're young married, we don't have a lot of assets, it might be simpler, it might be easier. Okay. What's it gonna cost? Most attorneys are gonna charge about $1,500 to $2,000 to set up an LLC. Land trusts are probably under $1,000. And some of these forms is let's say I need multiple LLCs. Once somebody has created it and funded it, you guys are smart, savvy people. You need them to create, 57 LLCs for a year. Once you have the document, can you, redo it? I'm not asking you to spend lots of money with your attorney. I'm asking you to spend enough money with the attorney to get it right. Okay? Yes, please. Okay, for every trust, you're initially going to be the trustee. If you're married, there's your co-trustees. And then you have signature power, okay. And then there's gonna be a successor trustee. If I'm not here, here's who I want to run the trust. And then we generally list several people in succession. And the last one, which might be your banker. Why? Because they're the most expensive, but they'll make sure they get it right. But the bankers, most banks have trustee departments or trust departments, but they're expensive, but they're also, they can't be swayed. They're impartial, but we list several people. So beneficiaries have contingents. Trustees have successors. So we list several people in succession. And what my parents did, they were the trustees of your trust. And they listed they listed my sister and I as contingent successor trustees. My sister and I still have to agree to everything. I wouldn't put more than 2 people in as successor trustees because then it turns into a fight. But my sister and I get along, except about her husband. Yeah. Anyway, that's another story. Okay, question, yes. Yeah, probably not. You'd probably say an LLC would own those properties. And the trust is all it does is own your interest in the LLC. Like it owns the bank account. But every transaction that happens in the bank account doesn't affect the trust, because it just owns that your trust is gonna own the business entities. If you sell a business entity, then we amend the trust or the Schedule A. But every property inside the LLCs, doesn't matter. Did that make sense? Okay. It's like having, you got a brokerage account. Every time I sell my stock, the trust just owns the brokerage account, not the individual stock. Same thing with properties. Okay? Well, when you die, and if it's set up correctly, your oldest son, whoever's the trustee, maybe the oldest daughter, maybe whoever, they take the trust, they distribute the assets. And why do you need an attorney to do it? It's not gonna go through probate. It's a simple process that whoever is your successor trustee liquidates the assets or holds these assets in trust for the benefit of the kids or whatever terms, the babysitting instructions, they just follow their babysitting instructions. But we don't need an attorney if it's corrected. Okay. If they're out of the United States, if your successor trustee doesn't live in the United States, they just have to follow the rules, in the US, in Oklahoma. You're creating the trust, they have to become familiar with Oklahoma laws and follow the rules of the trust. You don't have to be a US citizen to be a trustee. But they do have to follow the rules. Okay, so can the successor trustees change the terms of the trust? Only if you gave them power to. Like I want some money to go to the Boy Scouts of America. But, oh, wait a minute, I want to give the power to the trustee that maybe, let's change it to Girl Scouts if we need to. I don't know, whatever. Okay, so only if you gave them power to. Once you pass away, the trustors, the one who created the trust, once they pass away, this trust becomes irrevocable. I can't change the terms unless there were powers that were given granted by me to say, yeah, you can change this beneficiary over here. But you want to be really careful with that. Generally, it becomes an irrevocable trust and it's poured wet concrete. But sometimes you can give a little bit of power. Okay, yes?
Once you're gone, how does one verify the compliance of the trust being followed? Like, is there like a third party or a second? Who's trusting the trust is being carried out?
Okay, the question is really who owns the trust? The beneficiaries do. And so if the trustee isn't following the terms of the trust, the beneficiary can gang up on them, take them to court, and appeal. Now, that's really hard if you didn't distribute a copy of the trust to all the beneficiaries. And if the trustee is the only one, then that leads a lot to very unscrupulous trustees. They're the only ones that have the trust, and they're not going to give it to you because they don't have to. So remember when I said my dad gave a copy of all the beneficiaries, here's a copy of the trust. If the trustee, me, and my sister don't follow the terms of the trust, the other kids can get together and appeal to the court. Does that answer? Okay. All right, are you ready for a break? Okay, let's take a break and then we'll come back and talk about capital
Okay,
gains.
let's take a quick, this is the last break. Don, thank you so much. I just text my attorney, my attorney, make appointment to review my living trust. Okay, if you haven't filled out the piece of information, I'm gonna do the last drawing before we come back to the last section of the day.
And how do you want them to handle these little sheets?
Yes, once you fill out those, can you give it to me? Or I go collect them.
Okay, Thank you for those, and would love to have you attend this.